Hello YouTube, Ken here with another Black Desert Online video for you. And in today's video, we're going to be going over the first set of tests that I've done with the Agris Fever buff. And I spent quite some time this week grinding in two locations. I went to Sherekhan Necropolis and I went to Blood Wolves Den, and I spent about 5 hours in each location to see what kind of improvements we get in our trash loot amount in there, because that's the only thing that the Agris Fever really buffs is the trash loot amount. So I wanted to see what kind of benefits we can get from the extra trash loot from those two areas. And I'm going to be testing other areas in the future. So if you have any suggestions for areas that you would like to see tested, feel free to post them in the comments down below. Yeah, so like I said, I went and spent 5 hours on each of those locations, and those are areas that are probably going to be quite busy around this time, because the Infinite Potions just came out outside of Korea, and the Blood Wolves Den and the Sherekhan Necropolis dropped one piece each for the HP pot. So good luck grinding those areas right now. There's probably a lot of people grinding trying to get those HP pot parts over there, and I was lucky enough this week to get my Sherekhan Necropolis drop, and I was very excited about that, because I really do not want to step foot in the area anytime soon. The mobs there with the constant stun lock and knockdowns and down smashes are very annoying, and I'm really happy to not have to go there anytime soon. And before we talk about the results, well, let's see, let me show you what my pets are. My pets and my gear, they'll be around here somewhere above my head or to the side over there in the corner. You can look. You can see that I'm sitting at 253 AP. Then I'm running 4 tier 3 pets and 1 tier 4 pet. And before we look at the actual results of the test, I want to talk about a couple of things that we should be talking about. A couple of things that I noticed when grinding. And the first thing is kind of obvious, is that if your character is like my Valkyrie and only has about 800 LT, you're going to be running to your horse quite often to unload all the trash loot they're going to be getting from the mobs. You get a lot of trash loot, a lot of extra trash loot. Just to give you an idea, in Blood Wolves Den with my Valkyrie with only 800 LT, I was going to my horse about every 6-7 minutes. So it was not a very comfortable experience. So if your character is struggling like my character and waiting for the next inventory weight sale on the Pearl Shop, then you're going to have a hard time managing your inventory, at least when it comes to your weight. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that if you're planning on grinding on an area where you will not have access to an NPC to sell your trash or your horse to unload your stuff, then it might not be worth grinding there with the Agris Fever if you're getting a lot of trash, enough trash to fill your bag in less than 1 hour. Also keep in mind that for the most part, if you're using your Agris Fever buff every day, you're not going to get 1 hour full of grinding there, unless you're grinding very slowly in each area. I believe roughly in Sherekhan Necropolis, each mob on average costs about 3 Agris Fever points, and in Blood Wolves Den each mob costs around 2 Agris Fever points. I didn't check individually each mob. What I did was I killed a large group and then just split the amount of points that it costs me for the amount of mobs that I killed, and I kind of did an average like that. I don't know if the mobs have different costs, but I doubt that you're going to be going and sniping individual mobs while you're grinding, so I don't think that really matters that much. The other thing that's also important to note is that the Agris Fever points are spent when you kill the mob and not when you loot them. So if you're grinding in a place where you are leaving a lot of loot behind, your pets don't have time to get all the loot from the mobs you're killing. If your pets are low tier, or if you're killing too fast, then you're going to be wasting a lot of Agris Fever points and not benefiting really from it. It might benefit you to go to step up to a harder area where perhaps you wouldn't be getting as much loot before, but now because of the Agris Fever buff, you could actually get some more loot. So it might be a good way to bump you up to the next area so you can get more loot and probably better loot, hopefully better loot. And this is one of the things you're going to be testing here, if it's worth stay in the areas where you're one-shotting mobs and moving from pack to pack really fast and leaving loot behind, or if it's better to move up to the next tier of a difficulty where you're going to be killing a little slower perhaps, but at least you're going to be getting all the loot and utilizing all your Agris Fever buff. So the way the test was done is I ran 5 hours in each location, 5 hours in Sherekhan Necropolis and 5 hours in Blood Wolves Den, and I didn't feel the need to run any more than that, because trash loot is not really based on RNG for the most part. You pretty much get around the same amount, similar amounts anyways, every time you grind there in areas. So running 10 hours or 20 hours really wouldn't make much of a difference. You get a small difference there between each time. It wouldn't really be no, it's not something like you're trying to average out a tongue red earring or something like that. And the way I split those 5 hours is I did 2 hours with only a loot scroll, I did 2 hours with Agris Fever and the loot scroll, and then I did 1 hour with only the Agris Fever. And the reason why I did one without the loot scroll is because a person on our Twitch community, they said that sometimes it might not be worth to use a loot scroll because of how the game rounds up or rounds down the amount of trash loot that you get. and combined the Agris Fever loot quantity buff with the loot scroll quantity buff, they thought that it might actually not be beneficial to use loot scroll. So we're going to be doing 1 hour in future tests as well with only the Agris Fever, just to see how that impacts the total amount of trash loot that we can get. And as we'll see in the results here, it did affect the loot. Having a loot scroll definitely benefited in these 2 locations quite a bit. So let's take a look at the screens, and I'll put a picture over here above my head somewhere with all the results that we got. And you can see there on the first, and I'll look at the screen here with you guys. And you can see the first column there with only the loot scroll in Sherekhan Necropolis. I got 6,800, about 6,800 trash loot from each run, with the second one being a little better because, of course, I was a little more, was a little better at the rotation and avoiding the CC. The second column there with Agris Fever and no loot scroll, I got about 2,000 trash loot more than with only the loot scroll. And then on the last column there, you can see the 2 runs. For some reason, the icon on the second loot scroll came out brighter than this other one. I don't know why, but you can see there the first one, actually I had some trash loot that I put in my storage, so it was actually 10,666 trash loot with Agris Fever and the loot scroll on the first one, and the second run was 10,948 trash loot with Agris Fever and the loot scroll. So you can see there that each buff that we added gave us about 2,000 extra roughly. Now one thing that I did not test was without loot scroll and Agris Fever in there, and that is because I never really grind without a loot scroll. I will go and run another hour. The other thing to notice too is that I am running a Kama Silver Blasting for all these tests. I'm not sure if that will affect the amount of trash that I get, but I just thought I would mention there. And then moving over to the Blood Wolves, then you can see that without loot scroll, first hour I got 10,800 trash loot. Second hour I got 11,400 trash loot. Only the loot scroll, no Agris Fever. Then the run with only the Agris Fever, no loot scroll, I got just short of 16,000 trash loot. And then the last 2 runs with Agris Fever and the loot scroll, I got 18,942 and 19,628 with Agris Fever and loot scroll. And you can see again quite a big jump there from just the loot scroll to the Agris Fever without the loot scroll. I got 4,000 more loot, and with Agris Fever and the loot scroll I got just about 3,000 more loot, a little over 3,000 more loot than I did with only the Agris Fever. So for these areas, for these 2 areas at least, you can clearly see here that combining the Agris Fever and the loot scroll is definitely giving you a lot more than either one of those buffs alone. And you can clearly see that just the Agris Fever in general is a lot better buff than just the loot scroll, because even though I don't know right now what the my base hour loot grinding speed would be without the loot scroll or Agris Fever, you can already see the numbers for just Agris Fever are a lot higher than the numbers for just the loot scroll. Those are my numbers for my first set of tests here. Like I said, if you want to see specific areas tested, let me know in the comments below. Keep in mind my gear level. I am not in a position to go grind Histria or Kratuga or Abyssal, whatever that place is called. Keep that in mind. But yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. If there's anything that I forgot that I want to mention, I will post it either in the comments below, or I will, when I'm editing, I will add a note, an additional note here. But I think that was a pretty good round of tests for the first week. If there's anything that you think that would help improve these tests, please let me know in the comments below. Let me see if anything that I should change anything to make these tests more useful for you. But other than that, if you liked the video and thought it was informative, I appreciate if you could hit the like button. If you want to see more video content from me, don't forget to subscribe, and also come and join our Twitch stream and our Discord community. Links for all those things down below, as well as my social media. And I will see you guys on Wednesday for the patch notes video. All right, take care.